Hello everybody, how's it going? It's me, Crendor, and welcome back to a Crendor Talks to Noble about lore, because I have no idea what's happening with the lore, and hopefully you don't either, so you can learn something.
Hello, everyone. I think that was my cue to jump in there.
That was your cue.
Hi, everybody. Let's talk about some lore today, shall we?
Yeah. So, pretty much, this is it's almost become an annual thing at this point. Every time a new expansion comes out, I know some lore, but I get lost in like what Blizzard's doing, especially nowadays where there's so many things going on with the lore that my mind is kind of spinning. And so
how long was it ago again that we did the previous one? Like a year or two?
Yeah,
Start of Battle for Esma, wasn't it?
Yeah, start of BFA, so almost 2 years ago. So I'm kind of lost. And so I always bring you on because, listen, you're like the lore wizard. You're like a library of knowledge.
Yeah, I walk around with little wizard hats. Hi, everybody. Want to know some lore?
Now I'm going to always picture you with a wizard hat on.
Yeah, that's fine. Look, I just love the story of Warcraft, and I love telling stories. So, by all means, happy to help out.
I guess I should also have you introduce yourself for people that don't know who you are.
Right. Hi, everybody. I'm Nobbel. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm the guy with a weird accent. And as I just mentioned, I love the story of Warcraft, and I love telling stories, which I've been doing for 8 years now. Time flies on the YouTube. With the goal of one day covering every bit of lore that Warcraft has to offer. And we're getting closer. We're not quite there yet. We're getting closer. And that's me.
Yeah. It's crazy. 8 years.
I know, right? Look, It's not my fault. They introduced the Chronicles in between. Like, I was getting there, and then they just turned all the lore upside down. I was like, okay, cool. I guess we get to start over now.
So speaking of turning all the lore upside down, can you
oh, nice bridge. Well done.
Can you explain that a little more in detail?
What do you mean, a little bit more in detail?
Like, what are the biggest things that they've kind of turned around with the lore, or like flipped upside down, if you will?
With the Chronicles, you mean? Well, it's more like the Chronicles were invented to streamline the lore. So in the past, we had like the Warcraft RPG, and we had Warcraft 1 and Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3, and then World of Warcraft. And at some point, they had a couple of different versions here and there. Like once upon a time, Sargeras was corrupted by the Eridar, which are like the predecessors of the Draenei. But then they decided to flip it around and have Sargeras corrupt the Eridar, and then the Draenei were the ones who ran away from them. Little things like that to just streamline it all, and just build on top of it, as well as new expansions, new stories to tell. Yeah.
Do you think that was the best way to go about it, or you think they should have did it a different way? Because it almost feels like with the games, right? You play the game, you get to experience the lore yourself and everything. It feels like with the books, they're like, well, read the book, and if you didn't, then you don't understand what's going on.
I think that the Chronicles were a really good idea. Like, there definitely needed to be a guideline, a sort of fallback as to, okay, I know this version of the story and that version of the story, which one is true, and now you can fall back on the Chronicles. That said, last BlizzCon, they have made mention of the Titans actually being the ones responsible for the Chronicles. So instead of having like this overarching narrator that knows all, that sees all, now we have a source where it comes from, which basically means what it's always been. Like, if Blizzard wants to change the lore, they can change the lore, right? And now they just give a reason to it. Like, the Titans didn't know everything, so if we still want to change the Chronicles, we can. And yet at the same time, in my opinion, they always had that freedom. But when you mention, like, you need to read the books in order to understand the lore, my mindset has always been that the lore needs to complement the story, or the books need to complement the story rather than tell the story that we get in-game. And a prime example would be Warlords of Draenor. The whole way that we go into Warlords of Draenor, Garrosh going to this alternate reality, and Dark Portal turning red and whatnot, that is not explained in-game until you actually get to Draenor. It is explained in the novel War Crimes how all of that came to be. That is a bad situation. a good situation is like the Arthas novel. Arthas, the story of the Lich King, very well known. They don't mess around with it, but they give more background information. What were characters thinking? The little extra hints and details here and there. So compliments, not do the full telling.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think it's one thing to be like, oh, and here's some more details about the lore and kind of delve a little deeper and everything. And it's another to be like, well, you better read the book or else you won't know what's going on.
Yep. Although Warlords was a good time to be a lore channel, let me tell you.
Yeah. No,
How do we get to Draenor? What is going on? Well, let me tell you.
So I feel like with BFA, I feel like just mentioning BFA, people are already like, but with BFA, can you kind of give a brief like generalization of the lore throughout BFA? Like, you don't have to go into detail, but kind of like what happened in BFA.
Okay, so Battle for Azeroth had two major storylines. One was the Alliance and Horde conflict, and if you've played Mr. Pandaria, you pretty much know the story Battle for Azeroth. Horde and Alliance fighting each other, gaining allies, fighting over territories, all the way up to the Siege of Orgrimmar. But instead of actually having a siege, Sylvanas vaped out of there, and that was the end pretty much of that conflict, with a couple of, little tales that will be playing in the next expansion. And next to that, there was the big bad of the Old Gods, which in this case is the Old God N'Zoth, as well as Sargeras herding the world of Azeroth. At the end of Legion, he stabbed the planet with this mighty, throbbing, flaming swords, which caused all kinds of Azerite to pop up all across the surface. Together with Magni Bronzebeard, we worked very hard on healing the world, making sure that we still had a world to fight over. And all of this got together with the defeat of N'Zoth, and apparently all the other Old Gods are gone as well. So Azeroth has been cleansed.
Now, okay. So the whole thing with N'Zoth, right? I feel like everyone's been building up like Old Gods, N'Zoth, and like everything this whole time, and it feels like they kind of just killed him off really quickly. Do you think they killed him off quickly because they just don't want to do Old God stuff anymore, or do you think they killed him off quickly because they're just like, it's we'll bring him back at a different time, or do you think they really are just done with it?
I honestly cannot tell you why they did with N'Zoth what they did. A lot of people asked when Battle for Azeroth was announced with like a release date and whatnot. They asked like, are they ready? Do you think that the game is ready already? It's so short. And I had a lot of confidence in Blizzard. I was like, yeah, I mean, if Blizzard thinks that they're ready to release this game, then it's ready to release. My opinion after playing it has definitely changed on that. And when it comes to N'Zoth, it feels very much like it's an afterthought. Like you said, the Old Gods have been built up greatly. The whole Cataclysm expansion, that was Deathwing, a minion of N'Zoth. So having N'Zoth released from his prison, something that we have not seen ever on our time on Azeroth. The Titans, they imprisoned these Old Gods, and now one of them is actually released. That should be monumental. That should be insane. Yet the effects that we saw was like 2 zones that became corrupted and a raid, and that's kind of where it ended. So will they ever go back to the Old God storyline? Like some people wonder, like a whole battle with N'Zoth and cleansing Azeroth, perhaps that was just a vision, a dream. It didn't really happen. To which I would ask, what shit of a story are you telling that people are actively wishing for it to not be true?
Yeah.
It's that's not. Can they pull that? Yeah, of course they can. But is it really good storytelling? No, not really. That said, the Old Gods and Azeroth, apparently that's been cleansed according to Magni. But the Old Gods have a source behind them, like the Void Lords in their own realm. Those are the ones who shot them out into the physical universe. So the Void Lords are still out there. There might still be other corrupted planets out there. But in the case of Azeroth, for now it seems that storyline has been dealt with.
Yeah, and it's they even just make it really confusing in a lot of ways too, of like, well, they're not dead if they die in like not the void or whatever. Is that right? Like they have to die in the void, but even then people don't know if that's true.
Yeah, it's kind of what they're going with. Like they've made the distinction that mortals, they go to the Shadowlands, whereas magical beings, they go to other places. Think, for example, with demons, we've seen in the past, they go to the Twisting Nether. Old Gods presumably go back to where they came from, which is the Void Lord's domain. And there might be more examples of magical creatures not going to the Shadowlands, but to their own domain. Does that mean that if we kill them in their own domain, like the demons, that they are truly dead? Do they then go to the Shadowlands, or is there something else going on? Hopefully next expansion is going to explain more of that.
So actually, speaking of, like, when mortal beings die, they go to the Shadowlands. Have they, like, given a explanation to why, like, when our characters die, they don't go to the Shadowlands? Or is, like, the actual spirit healer, like, a person from the Shadowlands that's like, nah, like, you're good, stay here?
Part of it is game mechanic, but the reason that they mention is the Valkyr that we know. There are different generations. There's like the Lich King Arthas Valkyr. There is the Odin Helya Valkyr, and then there are the Valkyr from Bastion in the Shadowlands, who at this point in time are now like the original Valkyr. Some of the Valkyr that were created during the Odin Helya saga, they decided to remain behind in the Shadowlands and sometimes guide the souls back to wherever they want to go. But again, it's very much also a gameplay mechanic. Like, if you, story-wise, if you see somebody die and all of a sudden they get back up again, it's gonna look weird, right? It's gonna be like, Varian, weren't you just disenchanted? What happened, buddy? Like, for those characters, that usually doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So with the Shadowlands, so it's pretty much just when you die, you go here. But, like, can you give a little more depth of, like, what actually the Shadowlands are?
Right. The Shadowlands is a domain which is set to even predate the Titans, so very old domain. And the way that it's set up right now is you die, and the way that you lived, the way that you died, that matters. So you go to the Shadowlands, you bring your experience with you, which is converted into something called anima. And anima is like the lifeblood of this world. It keeps the Shadowlands running. As you go there, you are presented before the Arbiter. And the Arbiter, this being, this creature, in an instant, she or it knows your entire life and will make the judgment as to where you belong. If you've been naughty, if you've been like a Kilfa Sunstrider, you will go to an area called Revendreth, where you can pay for your sins, and eventually, after paying enough for it, you might pass on to a different domain in the Shadowlands. Or, if you are irredeemable, I'd send you to the Maw, and you don't want to end up in the Maw. It's like hell. It's eternal torment. You do not want to end up in the Maw. Say that you die a heroic death, like a Uther the Lightbringer, for example, in sacrifice to others. You might find yourself sent over to Bastion, where, like the origin of the Valkyr, you will see a lot of similarities with like Odin's domain that we saw in Legion. That is where the heroic ones die. That's where they go to. If you are living your life in pursuit of power, like a Draka, which is Thrall's mother, you might be sent over to Maldraxxus. And if you are connected to nature, you might find yourself to Ardenweald. That's kind of how they described it so far. So depending on how you lived, depending on how you died, that is where you are selected into what pocket dimension of the Shadowlands you belong in. And these are just a few examples. They've also said that there are many more pocket dimensions. So if you want a pocket dimension for all the turtles that didn't make it to the water, there might be one. A pocket dimension for dragons, there might be one. You know, these are just the examples that we've seen so far. Seen so far, yeah.
Seen so far. So what you're saying is, if there's no turtle made it to the water dimension, we should get mad.
They're probably in the Maw. Yeah, they're probably chilling in the Maw, being tormented and whatnot. Well, actually, funny part is, they've said that around the Legion time periods, because this is how the Shadowlands normally works, right? Mm-hmm. But there's conflict in the Shadowlands. There is a being in the Maw called the Jailer, and the Jailer, instead of letting things go their regular way, he's been sucking in all these souls. Somewhere in the Legion period, something happened. And now all the souls that have died, they just go straight to the Maw, regardless of where they actually belong. So knowing that these turtles died in Battle for Azeroth after Legion, they are in the Maw. They are being tormented right now.
Oh.
Poor turtles.
Oh. Well, that's not fun. So, who do you... I know this is like a common thing people keep bringing up, but like, who do you want to see in the Shadowlands that died?
Ooh, Taron Gorefiend. If you remember Taron Gorefiend from the Burning Crusade, one of the original Death Knights created by Gul'dan, and he had like this whole speech about the wheel of time spins again and I'll make it return and blah blah blah. I think it's pretty cool to see Terran Gorfiend, but I'm open to many different things. Also, a lot of people, of course, mention Arthas. Like we're talking about the Lich King storyline, and then the Afterlife mention Arthas. But in my opinion, the story of Arthas and the story of that Lich King has been done fine. It's one of the better stories that they've told in Warcraft. Bringing him back, actively playing a part in the story, all they can really do is fuck it up, ain't it? So for me, it would be cool to see like a cameo, to see like Arthas somewhere in the Maw, imprisoned, and certain characters will interact with him, like a Jaina or Sylvanas poking him, like ha ha ha. But actively playing a part in the story and coming back into the world. For me personally, it wouldn't be a great scenario, but I know other people would really like to see him make comeback as well.
Now,
how about for you, Crendor? Which one would you like to see?
Now, hear me out.
Oh God, here we go.
The number one character I'd want to see in the Shadowlands is Mankrik's wife.
Oh, you know that they made mention of Mankrik's wife at BlizzCon, yeah?
Oh, did they?
Yup, as a little cameo possibility.
When wait, so like in the actual like dev interviews and stuff, they mentioned it.
Actual presentation, yeah, at the stage. Either it was the deep dive or just the initial presentation. But yeah, they actually made mention of Mankrik's wife.
Oh yeah, no, that's got to happen. That'd be spicy. That's everything I've lived for.
Sold on the expansion, the reunion between Mankrik and Mankrik's wife.
Yes. Oh. Well, actually, would Mankrik have to die to see it, or could Mankrik like come along? Like,
I don't think he necessarily has to die. The way that we go into the Shadowlands, Bolvar is going to help us out, and we're going to end up in the Maw. Normally, nobody escapes from the Maw, right? Mm-hmm. Some of the people that come with us are going to be left behind. They haven't said who, but we do know that some of them are going to be left behind. Whereas we are super duper special. We become Maw walkers, as in we can go in and out of the Maw at will. So in the case of Mankrik, he doesn't necessarily have to die to come with.
He would just have to become a Maw walker.
If he can. I mean, he has to become a player to be super duper special these days. But yeah, he could try. He is Mankrik after all.
Yeah. No, it all adds up. Mankrik goes in there. He's super special. He meets his wife in there. And then, he becomes the warlord, chieftain of the Horde.
You know, I was so excited to replay the Mankrik's wife questline in Classic. I had heard many, many tales about it over the years. I do the quest on Classic, and it's literally on the right side of the road. I click on her, and I'm like, was this it? What is all the hype about? Was this it?
Well, the hype itself was that it became a meme quest because everybody'd be like, where's Mankrik's wife? Because everybody'd play and they'd go to the Barrens and then they couldn't find her. And they'd be like, where is she? So they'd ask in the Barrens, like, where's Mankrik's wife? And everybody'd give them meme answers like, I don't know, or like, and so...
At your mom's house. Did you make a machinima about that?
I did, actually. It was...
Yeah, you did.
I don't actually remember which machinima it was. It might have been the unreleased Cataclysm trailer. It was one of those way back. And it was... Yeah, so that was just a meme thing, and that's why the quest became as popular as it did.
You actually did. 10 years ago, Mankrik's wife, the story. WoW machinima, but WoWcrendor.
Oh, yeah. Well, I made an actual Mankrik machinima as well. Yeah, that was 10 years ago. Oh, my God. 10 years. Cool. Man. Now I'm like getting...
Time flies, I know.
Yeah.
The unreleased WoW Cataclysm trailer is also 10 years ago. The Go Guy story, 9 years ago. Damn, dude.
Yeah, I started YouTube in 09. January 09. So I've actually been on YouTube 11 years.
Wow.
So it's been an interesting ride. So speaking of Shadowlands again.
Oh yeah, let's go back there. Uh-huh. Sorry, I was just looking here at a pointless top 10 best ceilings in World of Warcraft, and I was like, I need to see this. 241,000 people have watched the top 10 best ceilings.
I'm going to tell you right now, there's some cool ceilings. If you watch that, you will see some ceilings I guarantee you've never seen before. 'Cause most people, they don't look up, right? When you're walking around places, you don't look up.
Uh-huh.
And so when you look up, you're like, oh my God, that's up there? Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, at least twice. You're gonna get your mind blown at least twice.
Okay, I'll put it on my playlist for later tonight. I'm gonna watch
Excellent.
it. Right,
Good.
let's get back to the Shadowlands.
So back to the Shadowlands. So how about the other side of the BFA lore, like the whole Horde versus Alliance things? I know that's got the whole Sylvanas drama with it, right?
Yeah. So the thing behind that is that they're adding a little bit of lore. We knew from the short story called Edge of Night that let's go further back. Sylvanas became the leader of the Forsaken because Arthas, the whole war, she was turned to a banshee, reclaimed her body, and she wanted vengeance upon Arthas for what he had done to her people. Whole bunch of people dead, kingdoms in ruin. You know the spiel. And she joined the Hordes to get that accomplished. Her Forsaken, their entire goal was to see Arthas punished for what he had done. And at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, they got exactly what they wanted. Arthas was defeated. They did place a new Lich King upon the throne, Bolvar, because there must always be a Lich King. Sylvanas' mission was done. So at that point, they decided to figure out a new motivation for her and the Forsaken. Sylvanas, knowing that her mission was done, decided to throw herself from the top of Icecrown, herself upon the Serenite spikes down below. And instead of that eternal bliss that she had felt the first time she died, now she ended up in the Maw. She ended up in Hell. She ended up where Arthas' spirit was as well, and this was not a good time. Back then, in the short story, they explained it by the Valkyr showing up, offering her a deal. The Valkyr wanted freedom. They wanted to be freed from Bolvar's control. They would take her place in Hell. They would even allow her to create more Forsaken with their power. In exchange, she would take them away from the top of Icecrown. And Sylvanas agreed. Now they've added that when she killed herself, she got in touch with the jailer, and the whole plan of working together, for whatever motivation, that's not clear at this point in time, but all of that came to be. Time passed on, Vol'jin stabbed on the Broken Shore. He was whispered a name to make the war chief, Sylvanas. And as we now find out, that actually was because of the manipulations of the jailer and his ally, Muzala. Muzala being a low of death, they whispered to Vol'jin to make Sylvanas the war chief. And in her role as war chief, she was able to make a whole bunch of people die. Those people that died, instead of doing the regular Shadowlands thing, they were sent over to the Maw, to the jailer. And those souls, Sylvanas pretty much cheated. She got a covenant before the rest of us. Those souls were feeding into the jailer's power, as well as her power. So with enough power gathered, the whole battle for Azeroth war played out. Like, regardless if the Horde would win the war, regardless if, the Alliance dominated them or not, Sylvanas would win, because there would be much death on both sides. She would win either way. So we saw the burning of Teldrassil, we saw Sourfang eventually one-shot it, we saw a whole bunch of people die. And all of that was just feeding the jailer, feeding Sylvanas' power, up to the point where she was like, I don't need you guys anymore. You're all nothing to me. There's more out there. That is that Siege of Orgrimmar that I mentioned earlier. So she vapes away. Sourfang is dead. Somewhat kind of peace trying to get going again between the Alliance and the Horde. And next thing we know is that she makes her way to Icecrown again, to Bolvar, where she is now powerful enough to take on Bolvar the Lich King. She literally rips the helmet off his head. She rips apart the Helm of Domination. And by doing that at Icecrown, she rips the veil between our world, the physical world, and the Shadowlands, the Afterlife. And that is that massive, beautiful rift in the sky. That's what's been going on. Now, the question is, of course, why exactly is Sylvanas doing this? And figuring out her motivation is kind of difficult because we're not entirely sure. It could just be very basic, as in she ended up in the Maw. She didn't want to be tormented, so she decided to ally with the jailer, and that is her way out, right? So she starts off the next expansion. She's just, ha ha ha, look at me. We kill her, we kill the jailer, and we're heroes. But I'm personally hoping that there's more to it. I'm hoping that some have suggested that maybe she'll become the jailer, or maybe she is playing like a little Illidan, right? Pretending to ally with the jailer, but in reality, she just wanted Azeroth to come over to help her take care of it. Something in that direction would, in my opinion, be a lot more interesting, but that's what we're going to find out.
So what is the Vol'jin whisper? So, I know Vol'jin's been dead, but, is it, he's, whispering from death then? Is that, the whole premise?
Yeah, Vol'jin, in life, Vol'jin was a shadow hunter, which means that he had a very strong connection to the Loa. And Loa are like very powerful spirits and beings amongst the troll culture. One of these Loa is called Muzela. And if you go to Zul'Farrak, you can actually see with the sand trolls a little tablet describing him. There's also a little shrine for him in Zuldazar, in Battle for Azeroth. Basically, he is a death god, a son of time. I think one of his titles is he is Muzela. And for quite a while in Battle for Azeroth, the question was like, who exactly whispered to Vol'jin to make Sylvanas the war chief? And in Shadowlands, I'm gonna find out. We should have actually put like a massive spoiler at the start of the video, but whatever. we could do that in editing, but yeah, we're gonna find out that it was actually Muzela, and Muzela is working together with the jailer, who whispered to Vol'jin to make Sylvanas the war chief. So Vol'jin thought that he was listening to the Loa, that he was doing the right thing to the Horde. Meanwhile, it's actually the jailer and his allies messing things up.
Ah, I see. Hey, I'll just put like some spoilers in the title or something. That way, you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
So now I've heard a lot of people saying that the Alliance and the Horde are gonna like work together to the point where like they're not even really fighting anymore. Do you think that would happen in like a lore sense, or no?
Sort of. Like, similar to what they did with the Mr. Pandaria war, is they blamed the war chief for all the trouble. So back then it was Garrosh. Like Garrosh became the big bad, and the Alliance and Horde tried to work together again. Now they pin it all on Sylvanas. Now, there is a treaty signed between the Alliance and the Horde, Anduin and Thrall and all those people. They're trying to make peace working again. But as always, there will be people holding on to old hatreds. Again, Greymane lost Gilneas, who lost his son, who lost a whole bunch of things to the Horde, and Sylvanas. He's not down with this whole let's go for peace thing. Same with Tyrande and the Night Elves. Like, they lost Teldrassil. They lost nearly all of their people. It's been described as the genocide of the Night Elf race. Tyrande, it has done a ritual which is the Night Warrior, they call it, which is basically like the dark side of Elune, their goddess. And Tyrande doesn't feel like following Anduin's path, as in, let's try to go for peace again. They tried that. Time and time again, the Horde and their war chief has shown that they can't be trusted, that they will strike out again. And Tyrande wants to see Sylvanas pay before any peace talk can even happen. So there are still lines going on with people wanting to keep the war going, and I'm sure that we're going to see, a bit of fighting during Shadowlands. But at the same time, we have just done another conflict between the Alliance and the Horde. I'm personally hoping that it won't take the forefront. Like, I appreciate Legion, because in Legion, the whole faction war was just a little side thing, while all the other interesting things were happening. And we've done the storyline so many times now, right? So in my opinion, I'm okay with it taking a backseat, but there will be people holding on to the fight.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you on that one. I'm kind of burned out of the whole like Alliance versus Horde. Like, I get it, it can be there or whatever a little bit, but yeah, I definitely.
I'm still surprised that they're so hell bent on not letting Alliance and Horde players just play with each other. Like, I understand lore wise, you want to keep the factions in. Just open up the gates to let Blood Elves and Night Elves just fight with each other. Every single expansion, the story ends up with the Alliance and Horde work together against the big bad. Why won't you let them play together, Blizzard? Why not?
I think even if they tried it for like one expansion, just to see what happened, that'd be kind of fun.
I mean, it's a dwindling player base. There's the whole racial imbalance that people bitch about. And you could just play with your friends. Like, who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah, well, I guess the big thing would be PvP. It's like, would world PvP just stop existing, or could you fight anyone? Like, just make it a free-for-all.
They could use the system that they use for the battlegrounds. Like, on the battlegrounds, you can become like a mercenary, so they basically just put you on the other side, and you go through the battlegrounds. Why can't they do that for raids as well?
Yeah. I don't know. Or they could even, it'd be interesting if they did, like, kind of... Remember Burning Crusade with like Scryer and Aldor? Maybe they had like factions everyone picked, and so no matter if you're Alliance or Horde, it would like PvP be based on like the faction or racial, not racial, but like reputation you're a part of.
That could be like the Covenants. God, do you remember Scryer and Aldor? My, that takes me back.
Man.
Looking up the pot, checking out the rewards. And
Hey.
Jimmy, I can't believe what Jimmy did.
we might have Burning Crusade Classic soon.
Yeah, well, soon might be a bit soon, but it's definitely something that's gonna be on the horizon, ain't it?
Yeah. No, it's gonna happen. Like I'm 99% sure.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Do you think they're gonna let you copy your character over, or are they just gonna turn Classic into Burning Crusade and screw everybody who wants to play Classic?
No, I think they'll let you copy your character over. I think they'll do a copy, and then I think they'll also do probably like new servers where you can level like all the way, or even new servers where you can start at level like 58 or something. So I think they'll offer options. But if they only had to have one, I think it would be the copy a character over to like a Burning Crusade server while still having your character available on like a classic server.
I mean, the big problem with Classic was trying to reform the code, if I remember it right.
Yeah.
But now that they've figured out Classic, Burning Crusade should be easy peasy, right?
Oh yeah, that's the main reason that I'm thinking it's going to happen sooner than we think is just because they've already created an entire kind of system now to recreate the old games. So I think the hardest part would probably just be doing flying again.
Yeah.
I mean,
as well as diluting the player base, I suppose, because then you're gonna have the retail live player base, you're gonna have the classic player base, and now there's also gonna be the Burning Crusade player base.
Yeah, that is true. But I think if anything, they would probably release it after the Shadowlands hype dies down. So I think it would probably happen maybe like 5-6 months after Shadowlands launched. I think that wouldn't be a
year and a half from now.
Yeah, it's probably a year and a half from now.
Something like that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I could see that happen. Like, at the same time, you also still need to do Naxxramas on Classic. Ankara still needs to be released as well. So I'm thinking, as long as they still have Classic content to releasing Burning Crusade already would be a mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too.
Okay.
So, I mean, pretty much going back on the lore.
Let's do it.
I mean, I think that's pretty much the general synopsis of everything, right? Like, is there anything that I'm leaving out that I should know?
Well, when you go to the Shadowlands, we're gonna find out that the anima is out of balance. Like I mentioned, all the anima is being drawn into the Maw, and us being Maw walkers means that to the different factions that are chilling on the Shadowlands, we are super duper special, and they want our help. So in exchange for joining their covenant, they're gonna give us power, they're gonna give us cosmetic rewards, all that good stuff, and yeah, pretty much the aim of the game is to figure out what is going on in the Shadowlands. Like I've told you just now, of course you're not going to find out right away. And you're going to meet some familiar characters. Like we mentioned Uther the Lightbringer earlier. What was rather interesting in the Bastion zone is that Uther is actually part of the Purple Smurfs rather than the Blue Smurfs. The Blue Smurfs are the Kyrians that actually go through the whole ritual. They earn their wings. They work towards whatever role they want to fulfill next into the Shadowlands, be it like become a Valkyr or instruct themselves. Whereas the Purple Smurfs, they're the ones who are like, I can't let go of my past. I refuse to let go of my past. And my question with that is that simply because the anima is out of balance? Or are people actually wondering, should I let go of who I used to be? And that also flows into the whole idea of Sylvanas mentioning that she's, this whole world is a prison. And I'm beginning to wonder if the Shadowlands, as it's presented, if that is actually what it's supposed to be like. Imagine a storyline in which we find out that the Shadowlands that we go to, the whole Arbiter judging us, and that entire system, imagine that is created by something, by a force behind it. Using these souls as just little anima batteries and just constantly reincarnation, constantly letting you go through the mill. And Sylvanas knows this. Sylvanas, with her touch in the Shadowlands and her own death or whatnot, she knows that things aren't quite right. Like, regardless what happens to us, regardless what we do in life, once we die, we go to the Shadowlands, we deposit our anima, we might even get tortured for a little while, and then the cycle repeats. It will be a prison. It will be a prison of some force that has created the Shadowlands. And I'm hoping that there's going to be like moral dilemma about what the afterlife is supposed to be. I'm hoping that there's going to be more to it than just, there's a big bad, go deal with it.
Yeah. That's I think it's always more fun when there's there's actually some depth and mystery and everything to the story, and not just like, here's bad guy, go kill bad guy.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And then, of course, the question becomes like, okay, we now see in the alpha what the start is going to be like. But this is just the start of the expansion. Where they're going to take this. They've made mention of the theme going to be about the afterlife, so death, but the counterpart also life. So then you start thinking about, okay, what does it mean, the force of life? What might we see there? There's mention of a pantheon of death. Is there going to be a pantheon of life? And what is Sylvanas' ultimate fate going to be like? And I made a video about this, like, can Sylvanas be redeemed? It turns out that a lot of people are actually just done with Sylvanas. They just want the storyline to end and just kick her off the stage. But at the same time, there's still a whole bunch of people actually really happy and fans of Sylvanas. And one thing that recently came to mind is perhaps they should have this force of life actually bring Sylvanas back to life, and then just have to deal with all the things that she's done. Actually feel all the emotions of literally genocide of a race and all the other horrible, horrible things that the Forsaken have done over the years. And that would be your punishment for all the things that she's done. By doing that, you not only make her pay for what she has done, but also the possibility of future storytelling.
Huh. Well, I'm one of the people who's just tired of Sylvanas.
Just get rid of her.
I just want the cane to come out, pull her off the stage, next person up. It's, like at first I was like, yeah, Sylvanas all right. And now it's just, it's kind of like how people were like, all right, I'm done with demons, or I'm done with Horde versus Alliance or everything. I'm just done with Sylvanas. I just want something new. So
I do wonder who they have. I wonder who they have in mind to actually take over leadership for the Forsaken, and how they're going to keep that story going. Because not only have they lost Sylvanas Windrunner, which has been a big reason for a lot of Forsaken players to actually play Forsaken. But with Sylvanas also goes the way of creating new Forsaken with her go to Valkyr. So I wonder if they want to keep that faction going, exactly how they're going to do that.
Arthas takes over.
Just Arthas Menethil, yeah?
Just Arthas. No, Mankrik's wife takes over.
Oh,
it practically writes itself.
How could we not have seen this? Mankrik's wife, easy. Now, actually, there's like two major contestants. There is Kalia Menethil, which is Arce's sister, or Lillian Voss, which has played a big role during Battle for Azeroth.
Yeah, she's, I know Lillian Voss was in Skullmanes? And Hearthstone.
They added her as a card in Hearthstone, ain't it?
Yeah, she's a Hearthstone card.
Lillian actually became part of the new Forsaken starting area, and during her questing we find out that her daddy was part of the Scarlet Crusade, and the Scarlet Crusaders are not down with the undead, so they put a hit out on her. And then Lillian just goes on a freaking rampage. She goes after the Scarlet Crusaders, and then she goes after all the necromancers she could find. But over time they've decided to evolve her storyline, and in Battle for Azeroth at first I was like, why is Lillian helping out Sylvanas, right? If you hate being a Forsaken, why would you help Sylvanas? But they've actually given it a fair bit of story development and a fair bit of reasoning. So now to see her as leader of the Forsaken in the future, it's not that crazy anymore. Nah.
I was going to ask about the Lich King, because they always say, like, there must always be a Lich King, right? And then she tears the Lich King helmet, and you said that's how we go to the Shadowlands, yeah?
Yeah.
So is that like done now? Like, is the Lich King over, or like what's happening?
For me personally, it always felt like the line of there must always be a Lich King, that it was very much just keep the window open in case they wanted to go back to their storyline, like pretty much the window that they're breaking right now, right? But breaking the helmets is going to be the pre-event. We're going to see what happens when there is no Lich King to keep the Scourge under control. That's going to be the pre-event. And then in the Shadowlands, we're going to be dealing with a blacksmith, a runesmith. The guy who's actually responsible for creating the domination armor and the helmets. So the guy who's responsible for what Sylvanas shattered apart. We're going to be making legendaries with this character. We're going to find out more about the history of Frostmourne and domination gear. So we're going to find out more about it. And perhaps to actually give a better explanation as to why there must always be a Lich King.
Huh. That's actually interesting. I didn't even... Wait, so are we going to, like... Here's another... Are we going to actually go up to, like, Icecrown Citadel, like to the top of the tower, and like that's how we go to Shadowlands?
I think
Is there gonna
so.
be a portal
Like
there?
I think so. Like they added, because if you on the alpha right now, if you go to Icecrown, you can actually see that the skybox has been shattered.
Oh.
They've recently added the whole new Death Knights created by Bolvar with a little cutscene, so that part is there. So I'd imagine that Bolvar either senses that something is coming, or the world just realizes, like, hey, what the hell? Why isn't Bolvar keeping these Scourge under control? Hey, Bolvar, we gave you one job, man, one job. And then we go there, and it's like, oh, Sylvanas came here. It was horrible. I could have stopped her. And then we go to the Shadowlands. You know, something like that. It
Yeah.
definitely makes sense.
So overall, what do you think is gonna happen? In a
What do
general
I think
sense.
is going to happen?
Yeah, like
In-
after Shadowlands gets going and we do everything, what do you think is gonna happen overall?
A good question. I actually recently did a video speculating on what storylines they can open up, which they can break open. Because it's near impossible to predict, like, okay, what is the next expansion going to be after this one? I mentioned earlier what I hope going to be part of the storyline, which is the philosophy behind the Shadowlands and the Afterlife, as well as life. They have been mentioned at BlizzCon that they want to deal with the Cosmology chart, which they added in Chronicles Volume 1. And basically, the Cosmology chart means different power sources in the Warcraft universe. You got like order and disorder, life and death, light and void, all these different powers. Whereas in the past, you had, if you backtracked any story in the Warcraft universe, you would end up at three sources. You either end up at the Old Gods, you end up at the Burning Legion, or you end up at the Titans. And those subjects has been covered. So now they want to expand upon that. So we're going to learn more about the death sector. We're going to learn more about the nature section. And in the future, they got like the light section to deal with. The void section could be touched upon. And that is where they could build up storylines. Alternatively, they could also go with the whole infinite Dragonflight storyline. You might remember the Cataclysm where Nosdormu was like, yeah, I am destined to become Moruzand. I am destined to birth the infinite Dragonflight. That storyline has never happened before. So at some point, it still needs to happen to our Nosdormu, which means that we could go into alternate realities. Now, I know that a lot of people are like, ew, alternate realities, warlords, boo.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you look at YouTube and you go to the videos, the what-if scenarios, they are pretty damn popular. So imagine a game where you go into a patch could be a world where Arthas never purged Stratholme or never picked up Frostmourne. Or a world could be where the Horde never made its way to Azeroth. Like, they could play around with different scenarios, different settings, just make something new and shiny and exciting and give you a what-if possibility. Just because Warlords sucked in the content department doesn't mean that the concept of alternate realities can't be done right. Besides that, there's also the Great Dark Beyond. That's like space in Warcraft. There's a bunch of different planets that we've never visited. There's still the Pantheon out there with Illidan and their captured Sargeras who could make a return. Azeroth itself could still wake up and like yoink that sword out of the planet and be like, yo, I'm ready to fight now. That's kind of the directions they can go in. And of course, you know, it's a fantasy story. They can always build up more if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Wowie. Well, all right. I think you've.
Wowie.
I think
Me rambling on here like this is what they could do.
No, I actually think you're right. I think the big thing with Warlords was just the garrisons and mobile apps and all that stuff.
Like the concept itself, the cinematic, and then seeing these orcs of old, there was definitely potential. And at the start of Warlords, people were goddamn pretty hyped.
Yeah.
It's just that we soon enough realized, like, oh, you just want us to stay in our garrison and just do this and raid?
Yeah.
Guys, I want to go to Farallon. Oh, you're going to send out my followers to Farallon. Oh, well, that's fun as well, I suppose. I can watch this timer tick down.
I want to
Thanks,
go
Blizzard.
into the world and gather herbs and mineral. Oh, they're just right here in my garrison. Okay. I guess I'd never leave. Fantastic.
Oh, cool. We're gonna get our own capitals, and we're gonna either defend them or capture them. No more capitals. Oh, okay. I'll just stick in my garrison then.
Oh, I have to pick
Fine.
where my garrison is? Oh, I want it to be... Oh, no, it's just here.
Oh my god, they had so much trouble developing the garrison. Oh, those
Yeah.
poor bastards. Even on launch, the garrison was still broken.
It was. So, man. Either way, thanks for helping me get caught up with the lore.
Of course. Are there any other questions, or are you up to speed with what's gonna happen now?
No, I think I'm pretty up to speed now. It's
Cool.
what about? Oh, actually, one more. Azerite. Is that just
Mhm.
like? Does it just go away now, or like is it there but we don't care anymore?
Like Azerites, the lifeblood of the Titan. At the beginning of Battle for Azeroth, everybody was pretty hyped about it. It's like, ooh, this is gonna change the face of war forever.
Hmm.
But that storyline was pretty much dropped early on, and it's like, yeah, we're gathering it, but does it really do much? It's I think the story that they're trying to tell is that we've healed the wounds, right? Like we've helped Magni patch up these wounds here and there. I think that's the idea that they're trying to sell. That there's no more Azerite popping up out of the world. Her heart is beating strong again. We did it. We saved the world. Good job, team.
Oh, all right.
All those mounted expeditions, it was worth it.
Oof. Not right. I didn't even get my mount. That sucked.
Aww.
That's what I say. I say mounts. Listen, gameplay, gear, all that. That's temporary. Mounts are forever.
Which one did you want to get?
I think it was the crab mount you can get. Right? Is it?
Did
crab?
you not finish Nashatar? What? The crab mount is not random. The crab mount is do your Nashatar meta achievement.
Island Exped. Well, I didn't do that either. Island Expedition.
The crab mount is amazing, dude. If you find the energy for it, the crab mount, its mount special is it goes underground and then it pops up again and then it clicks his little crab thingies as in look at my little trick, wasn't that amazing? And it's beautiful. Same with the alpacas, they're amazing as well.
Oh yeah. No, there's looks like Island Expeditions is a parrot, a squid looking octopus, I think a yeti, a drake, and a Pandaria looking thing. Which,
And you just have none of those, do you?
no, mainly because I don't want to do Island Expedition.
Do you still have any the bloom stored on your character?
I actually, you know what? I might. I have to check.
They added the whole vendor where you can buy like bags and go for a random shot.
Yeah, maybe I should do that. Yeah, maybe I do. 'Cause I'm sure I hit a point where I was like, I'll just keep saving these.
Make it streaming content. Snap your fingers and be like, okay, we're gonna open up these bags now. It's gonna be great.
Or just find a bunch of overpowered people and go to islands and then farm stuff until I can get the. There's so many options.
Like all in all, I actually like I rip on Battle for Azeroth because let's be fair, it's not been a great expansion, but it's been the one where I actually got back into raiding. So gameplay wise, I spent some hours on the game and I actually really enjoyed myself with it as well.
Oh wow.
I know.
I don't.
Raiding was solid.
Yeah, I feel like the expansion. I don't think it's the worst expansion. I don't think it's a good expansion, but it's
It's definitely bottom tier. Like for me, Warlords will always be worse. But then I hear people say about raiding was really good in Warlords. I'm like, yeah, that's fine, but I didn't raid back then. So I wonder how I would feel about Battle for Azeroth if I didn't raid in it.
Yeah. No, I still put Warlords at the bottom. I still think Cataclysm's down there. I still like Cataclysm. And I put BFA right above like Cataclysm and Warlords. So I mean, it's but everybody's got their own opinions, their own feelings. Depends on what you do, how you play the game, and everything too.
Just make a tier list out of it. That's all the hype right now, right?
I did make a tier list. It's on my YouTube channel somewhere in the past. But either way, thanks for answering all my lore questions as
Always.
as you typically do. This is like it's almost become a what do you call it? Kind of like a tradition, right? It's like the new expansion pops up, and I'm like, I need to learn about lore. Where's Noble?
Is it me or does this one feel a lot shorter than the previous ones?
I think you're just having a lot of fun. It's been about 50 minutes.
Oh damn. Okay. I didn't say a thing.
No, I think you're just having more fun this time. Time flies when you're having fun.
Always with you, Crendor. Always.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where I always make these videos because I'm like, people probably want to learn about lore, but really, it's me that wants to learn about the lore, and everybody else is along for the ride as I ask my like dumb questions where I'm like, what does this thing do? So thank you for answering my dumb questions.
There are no dumb questions, Crendor. And
There are
no,
no
that is
dumb
not
Crendors.
a challenge to join me on twitch.tv/Noble87 all of a sudden spam my chat with dumb questions. No, it's not.
Well, if people want to learn more about the lore in detail, where can they find your videos?
ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find out more about the lore, then go to Google and type in Nobbel, and you'll probably be redirected to my things. My suggestion for those that are like first timers to the lore and they're getting interested in it, find something that you're interested in. For me, it was the Wrathgate that really got my lore sense tingling. Find a character that you care about and either look up my videos or go to Wowpedia or get the books or whatnot. But yeah, you can find me on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, all over the internet.
You're all
no
over.
OnlyFans. Do you have an OnlyFans?
Only for my onlyest fans. Times get tough. You never know. Might have
That'd be very true. I've been pondering like putting up feet pictures. I wonder if people would pay for that.
Oh, they would.
Surely they would, right?
Oh, they definitely would. There's always someone.
Paint like my nails in different colors for different seasons. If it's a holiday like Christmas, I'll do red and green and whatnot.
Oh yeah, no, you'll get some fans for that. Trust me. All right, we're gonna get demonetized at this rate.
Boy.
Thank you.
Sorry, YouTube.
Go check out Nobbel. Links in the description. Go check out my stuff. You're already here. Check us both out, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again after Shadowlands hits to ask even more questions.
And if you got questions in between, just hit me up, Crendor. Always.
Yeah. Well, I never know how to end these, so I'm gonna hit stop recording right now.
Until next time, guys. And then you do the see ya.
Yeah, I'll do the see ya. All right. See ya. There it is. There it is.
Beautiful.